I exposed my new friend for dodging UK stamp duty after she flaunted a bomb mansion and refugee parents while hiding a second home. I, 56 male, live in the UK, and recently I came to know a young woman, mid-20s to early 30s, through some mutual friends. She moved here about 2 years ago and had previously studied here and then left. Shortly before she arrived, a conflict broke out in her country. She is from a relatively wealthy family, and her parents had a business there, and she had a very nice house there. Shortly after arriving, she bought a house here and was talking about it, and said that her house over there was much more luxurious, and she showed us pictures of it. She said that she thinks it was destroyed a few months ago. She also said that her parents and grandparents are now in a refugee camp, and they had to evacuate their home until she can sort out visas for them. I said that sucks, because she would have paid a higher stamp duty due to already having a home when she bought her UK house only to have it destroyed. In the UK, you pay a higher rate for second homes if you do not sell the first and have to declare it even if it is in another country. She said, she never declared it, so she paid a lower rate. I was able to obtain some evidence of the existence of her home and family business. I really like to follow the rules and think it is unfair to cheat on taxes, especially since it is always wealthy people doing it. Even if the home is really destroyed, she should have declared it since at the time it existed, and she would get the value from insurance anyway. I was thinking of reporting her for it and was wondering if that would make me an asshole. In any case, if HMRC finds out later, she could get in worse trouble and pay a higher fine, so in a way it would help her as well. At the same time, I am conflicted because of the situation she's in with her parents and them being stuck there. She was somehow able to flee since she had just obtained a UK visa and got out just in time. Though also to consider, I know that area has a lot of issues with fraud behavior. Would I be the asshole for doing this? That is the spine of it. Now here's what actually happened around those sentences, because it did not unfold as neatly as a paragraph. It bled into everything. My WhatsApp chats, my sleep, the way I look at my own front door when I turn the key. We met at a Sunday lunch that was louder than it had any right to be. Martin, old friend from back when we still wore ties to work, had moved to a new place in St. Albans and insisted everyone come break it in. 10 of us around a too small table, elbows knocking, someone's kid thumping a football against the fence outside. She showed up late with a bottle that looked expensive and a box of pastries tied with string. She's one of those people who can walk into a room and it tilts toward them. Not a performance, just the way she is built. Steady eye contact, quick laugh, hands moving when she talks. Hey, I'll call her. I won't name the country because the internet is a pit and I don't want to feed it. But you can picture the headlines because we all saw them. Gray smoke swaddling apartment blocks, a crowd with backpacks and plastic bags getting herded onto buses, that sort of thing. She talked about it like you talk about a tooth you keep touching with your tongue. Careful, and then suddenly too deep. 1 minute she's describing the queue at Heathrow. The next she's showing us photos of a house with floors shiny enough to see your face in them and a staircase that spiraled like a fancy cake decoration. I've never lived like that. I didn't resent it. I just looked and thought, right, that a different planet. They passed the phone around as people do. Before, she said, and then after, and there was a video someone sent her. A street I can only describe as punched in. Dust, a burned out car like a skull. She said she thinks the house went a few months ago. Not that it matters because her parents and grandparents had already gotten pushed into a camp near the border. She said camp and immediately added, it's safe. Not like the word sounds. She was trying to reassure us, which irritated me for a reason I couldn't place. Why to reassure us? Reassure them, surely. I don't drink much anymore, but the wine went around and loosened everyone's shoulders, and that's when she mentioned the house she'd bought here. North London, 2-bedroom terrace, small garden, nice street. Smart choice. Prices only go one way. Everyone oot and ought and asked the right questions. What's the commute like? Did you have to replace the boiler? That sort of safe English talk that makes us feel adult. I said something I didn't plan to say. Rough timing on the stamp duty, I blurted. Second home surcharge, and then your first gets blown to bits. That's a kick in the teeth. I expected sympathy noises. She shrugged, small smile. I didn't declare it. You know when a room seems to go quiet, but it hasn't? That. I'm not the fun police. I don't go around quoting the gov.uk website at parties. But my brain started doing math by itself. Here, if you already own a home, even abroad, you pay the extra rate unless you sell within a certain window. It's not complicated. It's not a trap. It's the rule. So you what? I said. You told your solicitor you didn't own anywhere else. She tilted her head. I just didn't mention it. It's not like I can live there. It's gone. That's not how it works, I said, maybe too fast. At the time you bought here, you owned there. That's the point. It's uninhabitable, she said, still smiling like this was academic. Probably flattened. Probably, I said. Her smile narrowed. I'm not doing this right now. Martin, sensing the air change, cracked a joke about the new oven and then made a big show of bringing out roast potatoes like the UN arriving with aid. The conversation jolted to something else. I looked at me for one long second, not angry, more like I was a dog that had barked for no reason. On the train home, I couldn't let it go. I've worked PAY my entire life. I fixed photocopiers and then printers and then managed a small team that did the same. Nothing glamorous. I've never had a clever accountant. When my mom needed a flat closer to us, I took the bloody hit on the extra stamp duty for a while, because rules are rules, and when I sold mine, I filed the forms and clawed back what I could. It wasn't a sob story. It was me doing what everyone is meant to do. So when I hear someone say, cool as you like, that they didn't declare a house because it was inconvenient, something in me snaps like a rubber band. I told myself to leave it. I'm not HMRC. I don't have a badge. But nosiness and righteousness are cousins, and both live in me. I looked her name up that night. You can find a lot without even trying. Her family's company had a website that was half broken, but still had the About Us page cached. Her surname is uncommon, which helped. Photos of a ribbon cutting with her dad, shaking hands, that sort of thing. I found a local property site in her country with an archived listing for a house that looked a hell of a lot like the photos she'd shown us. Same curved staircase. Same stupid chandelier, like a cluster of grapes. Latest sell date years ago, so not a recent sale, but there it was, ownership details, then the page dead ends with an error. I took screenshots. I felt dirty doing it, like I was peeking through curtains, but I kept going. I'm not proud of the next bit. I scrolled her Instagram. It wasn't locked down. The story is as old as the internet. People post their lives and then are surprised when those lives tell stories. There were photos from last summer. Her in a rented car in the Cotswolds, a flat white with a heart in the foam, an outdoor concert. Not obscene, not look at my yacht, just enough to sit wrong when I was thinking about the surcharge. A reel from 2 years ago had a pan across a kitchen that matched the pre-war photos. Caption home. A comment thread where someone asked if she'd sold, and she replied, no. Renting it out for now. Insurance is a pain. I read that twice and felt my ears heat up. Martin called the next day about something else, and I told him. You're being weird, he said. Don't turn into one of those men who writes letters to the council about bins. It's not bins, I said. It's tax. You like her, he said. That's what's going on. She smiled at you, and now you're having a moral crisis. Piss off, I said, but not angrily. He knows me too well. I didn't like her like that. She's my kid's age. It wasn't that. It was the casualness of it. The way people with money assume rules are for other people, and then they call it pragmatism. I left it for 2 weeks. Then she popped up again because our mutual circle is small. A charity thing. Someone organized a drive for winter coats for arrivals from her country who had nothing but summer clothes. I went because coats I can do. My wardrobe is half stuff I keep just in case. We met at a church hall that smelled of candles and damp. She was there early, hair in a bun, no makeup, wrestling folding tables out of storeroom. I hated that it made me like her. It's easy to dislike someone in a nice kitchen. Harder in a cold hall with a box cutter in her hand. We carried boxes together. At one point, she said, "You were very intense at Martin's." Did I offend you? You didn't offend me, I said. You said something that sounded like fraud, and then you smiled. She stopped. My country is on fire. I know, I said. That doesn't make HMRC a suggestion. She breathed out through her nose. It's not that simple. The solicitor said, "Your solicitor told you not to declare an overseas property?" I said, "Which one?" "Name and shame." She set the box down. He said there are gray areas. He said if the property wasn't available to me, if it was practically, what's the term, functionally uninhabitable, there might be arguments, and he said I should decide how much stress I could handle, and that the worst case was a higher bill plus a fine down the line, and I thought, okay, I will take that risk. My parents were packing one bag each. I wasn't parsing fucking guidance notes. She didn't raise her voice. That made it hit harder. I opened my mouth and nothing sensible came out. So I went with the only honest thing. I paid it. When I had to, I paid it. "Good for you," she said, not unkind. "Do you want a medal or a biscuit?" I laughed, surprised. She didn't. "I'm not the villain you need," she said. "There are worse people." "That's true," I said. "It's always true. That's how worse people get away with it." We worked in silence for a while. At the end, I helped sweep, and she thanked me, and we stood by the door like strangers waiting for a taxi. She said, "I told my grandparents I'd bring them here. I told them I'd fix it. I cannot do that if I go under. So if you think I should write a check to the king so I can be pure in your eyes, that's your business. I am just trying to keep plates spinning." "It's not my eyes," I said. "It's the law." She shrugged that little shrug. "Then report me." I went home vibrating. I made tea. I didn't drink. I opened the HMRC website and looked at the page for reporting. Anonymous tip. It even uses the word help. "Help us help you." I typed her first name. I backspaced it. I typed a generic version. Individual may have failed to pay higher rate of SDLT due to owning overseas property. I listed the year. I described the conversation in the most boring terms, like I was writing up a fault report for a jam printer. I uploaded the screenshots. My finger floated over the submit button and I couldn't press it. I closed the tab. That night my daughter called about something unrelated, her cat, a parking ticket, and I told her. She's 29, smart as hell, lives in a flat that costs more than my first house. "You're getting old," she said, laughing. "Old people love rules the way toddlers love routines." "So, I'm the toddler?" I said. "You're both the toddler and the parent," she said. "Report if you want. Don't if you don't. But don't turn it into your personality." "Doesn't it bother you?" I said. "We pay, and people who can pay more wriggle out." "It bothers me," she said. "It also bothers me that we've normalized house prices that would make your head spin if you saw them in the 90s. It bothers me that life is a series of hoops, and some people are born with someone to hold them steady. Pick which problem you can actually influence." "Tax compliance is influenceable," I said. She made a noise like a sigh through her teeth. "Dad, you're gonna emailing screenshots to a government website is not the systemic fix you think it is. It might just be you being petty because someone with nicer hair than you was glib in a kitchen." "She was glib," I said. "I'm sure she was," my daughter said. "Still not the Nuremberg trials." "That's not what I'm saying," I said, stung. "I know," she said. "I'm being a cow. Sorry. Look, you're a good man. Do what you can live with." I didn't sleep. I watched 2 episodes of something dull and then scrolled a forum where people argue about tax with the fervor of football fans. Everyone was furious at everyone else. Landlords furious at tenants, tenants furious at landlords, people who inherited furious at people who didn't, and vice versa. I closed it when I felt my skull humming. I worked the next day. Yes, I still do 2 days a week on contract because retirement is a myth unless you fancy beans on toast forever, I told Anna. She's my age, sharper than me, sees through people like glass. She said, "If you report, report, but don't make it an act of charity. You keep saying you'll be helping her because the fines go up later. That's not true. You want her to get caught because it will make the scales feel more even. Own it." "I don't want to be cruel," I said. "Then don't be cruel," she said. "Just admit what you want." What I wanted was to press the button and feel that ping of righteousness. What I also wanted was not to be the man who presses buttons about other people's lives. I have walked past cars parked on double yellows and not taken photos. I have watched someone slip 2 bottles into a backpack in a supermarket and not found member of staff. I'm not a narc by habit, but money feels different. Money is the way we tally the game, and some people get the scoreline altered at halftime and act like that's just good strategy. Another week, another event. This time a drinks thing for a mutual friend's birthday at a pub where the bathrooms smell like a problem the owner can't afford to fix. She came. She was in black, hair down, laughing at something someone told her. I noticed people gravitate to her, then check themselves like they weren't quite sure whether they should. She clocked me and came over like we were continuing a conversation paused a minute ago. Have you done it? She said, no hello. Reported me. No, I said. Are you planning to? I don't know, I said. I got the page saved. For God's sake, she said, but without the God. Do it or delete it. This is weird. You can fix this yourself, I said. Self-report. Pay the difference. It's not the end of the world. She took a sip, put the glass down too hard. I'm trying to pull 3 people out of a hole while keeping my own head above water. If I call HMRC and say, hi, I might have misunderstood and also lied, they'll chew me up and spit me out, and then I'll be less useful to everyone. You think I don't feel sick when I think about it? I do. I just feel sicker when I imagine my grandfather in winter with no heating. Something in me softened and something else hardened, both at once. It's not either /or, I said. You can pay what you owe and still save your family. You sound like a pamphlet, she said. Have you ever tried to sleep with a border in your head? With an embassy number on speed dial that never picks up? No, I said. I've tried to sleep with debt collectors calling because the printer leasing company I worked for cut hours. It's not the same, but it's not nothing. We stared at each other like teenagers in a bad play. Then she smiled, small and tired. I don't want this to be the story of me for you, she said. I don't want to be the girl who dodged tax. I know that's the box you put me in. It is too small. I don't want to be the old man who snitched, I said. Then don't, she said. I left early. I walked home for an hour, even though it was cold enough to bite. I thought about my dad, who worked nights in a warehouse and would say about rule benders, everyone wants to be the clever boy. He said it with disgust and a kind of awe. He never was the clever boy. He was the one who clocked in on time and went home tired. I got home and opened the laptop and opened the tab and stared at the button again. Then I did something else. I wrote her an email. I kept it simple. I said, if you self-report and arrange to pay the surcharge you avoided, I will delete what I have. If you don't, I will submit it, and whatever happens, happens. I gave her 2 weeks. I hit send and immediately hated myself in a new way. Because now I wasn't just a man with a moral itch. I was a man issuing ultimatums like a second-rate gangster. She replied within half an hour. One line, you don't get to hold a gun to my head and call it ethics. I wrote back, it's not a gun. She wrote, it is to me. We didn't speak for the 2 weeks. I didn't see her in person. Mutual friends kept inviting us to the same things, and I kept making excuses. I counted days like they mattered. On the last day, I checked my email, and there was a message at 3:12 a.m. It said I called. I am on hold. Happy. And a photo of her phone with the HMRC number on screen. That rotating circle that means you are wasting your life listening to a flute sample from 1998. I didn't reply. It wasn't proof of anything. She could have called, hung up. She could have been messing with me. But the tone wasn't a taunt. It was exhausted. I didn't know what to do. I printed the screenshots because I'm old enough to feel better when there's paper, and then I put them in an envelope and the envelope in a drawer. I told myself that a drawer is a decision. It isn't. It's a pause. Yesterday, she sent a text. I filed an amendment. Advisor says I might get a bill. If I do, I'll pay it. You win. I sat with that for a long time because nothing about it felt like winning. It felt like when you push a heavy door and it opens and there's another heavy door. I wrote back, it's not about winning. She, of course it is. Everything is. After that, Martin called and said I'd turned into a Victorian judge and should come to the pub to have chips and shut up. I went. We argued in the way old friends do when they know the bruises and where to poke them. He said I'd found a righteous hobby to distract myself from being lonely. I said he was a coward because conflict makes him itch. Anna said we were both unbearable. We laughed and then didn't. Here is where I land, for now. I haven't submitted the report. The envelope is still in the drawer. It says she's self-reported. Maybe she did. Maybe she did it because of me, or in spite of me, or because she always planned to, and my drama was a sideshow. Maybe a bill arrives, and she pays it and lives in her nice North London house, and brings her grandparents here, and they sit in her small garden wrapped in blankets, and drink sweet tea, and everyone breathes out. Maybe the bill doesn't come, and this is one more story about how the fog of bureaucracy lets anyone with enough energy and charm slip through, and the rest of us grumble into our sleeves and then go to bed. I know what some people will say, not your business. And they're right, except the whole point of tax is that it's everyone's business because that's how roads get paved and nurses paid and bins collected, and yes, I'm back to bins. And I know what others will say. Ding her. Send the report. Don't let your soft heart get tricked by a good story. And they're right too, because a country on fire doesn't turn an extra 3% into a donation jar. What I can tell you without dressing it up is this: I wanted to be the kind of man who pushes the button because I believe in the machine, and I also wanted to be the kind who doesn't because I believe in people. Those two men live in one body and they fight like brothers. Maybe that's what being 56 is. Maybe that's all this was ever about. If you expected a clean ending, I don't have one. I have a drawer with an envelope in it and a text message that says, "I filed an amendment," and a picture in my head of a chandelier that looks like grapes. I have a memory of her saying, "Then report me," and the way my hand shook over a mouse like a toy that suddenly matters. I have, stupidly, the urge to apologize to her and to the nurses and to the road and to my dad in his warehouse, who would tell me in that tired voice, "Pick a lane, son." So that's my question to strangers who don't owe me kindness. If I do it, if I file the thing and send the screenshots and let the machine handle it, am I the asshole? Or am I the asshole for turning someone else's disaster into my own tidy moral test and then acting like the outcome tells me what sort of man I am? I'll read whatever you say. I'll probably argue with half of it in my head. But I asked, so I'll listen. And before anyone says it, yes, I know, I could have minded my own business. Some days I miss the version of me who did.